Well, we would be ready
Oh,
if I didn't hear those chains jangling in the background, Tyler.
yeah, it's either I play with the kittens or the kittens maul each other and you hear them crying in agony.
Anyway,
Oh, that one.
God Save the King, happy Cinco de Mayo,
Yeah,
because it is Cinco
we
de
are
Mayo.
now we are now under a king, which I don't know what we were under beforehand. Then, like in that gap,
Uh, the king,
right?
he hasn't been coronated yet.
It's true, actually. Wait, actually, I think he might have started.
Like what?
I don't know. Whatever's
He's
going on.
coronated now. It's happened now. I watched them put the crown on his head. It almost didn't. It didn't really fit. It was just sitting on top of his head. I don't know if it's meant to do that or not. I don't know how on his head it's meant to be. All I can tell you is if it was my head, it definitely wouldn't fit. Because I've got a
Yeah.
big head to store my massive brain
And huge nose, and
and
then all the rest
huge
like average size.
nose. Yeah, it's actually like it's like a metal like eye beam that extends from my nose to the back of my head just to give it more power.
Yeah, we're here today to steal.
We are here to steal.
Yeah, give us your belongings. We want them.
Hippity hoppity, your features are now our property.
Yeah,
Not our property, actually. We're stealing
it is.
for someone else.
Yeah, we are stealing from the rich to give to the rich, because I mean Deep Rock is doing probably just as well as the games we would take from.
Except
So,
Terraria.
yeah, I mean Terraria is a kingpin as far as games are concerned.
Terraria is
right?
legitimately a kingpin, though. That's the thing. And it's a kingpin
Yeah.
for like a lot of reasons as well. You know, it's like one of the highest grossing games of all time, or highest selling games. And it's also, you know, the only. I'm about to say it's the only entry in its franchise. It's the only entry in its franchise. We know that. Shh. Um, it's just impressive in that sense, and it has such a hold on people. Everyone knows Terraria, and it's just
Everyone loves
one
it.
thing. It's just
Just likes it.
Terraria. So what is this? Well, this is an idea that I don't know who came up with it, but technically we've had it for a very long time, and it was originally intended for sort of podcast like episodes, sub episodes, and then I realised that the best way to do something like this would be to use the wiki of whatever game we're talking about. But that would mean there would be a lot of visual aid that would actually not be available to people watching the podcast, or at least it would essentially become something that's not a podcast. So it seemed kind of foolish to do that. And, you know, it feels like, even though we do it constantly, it feels like the Saturday slot always needs something else to keep it afloat. Even though it doesn't.
There's so many things that we could do on Saturdays.
Yeah, but you know, it's all run like what update retrospective.
Yeah, tier lists.
They'll happen every time Tyler isn't here on a Sunday. Well, tier list. I mean, that's a weird one, isn't it? Although tier list, on the subject of that, that's probably one of the easiest things to branch out with as well. I mean, we've done that and it hasn't really worked out. You know, we've had 3 tier lists that aren't. But then again, this is branching out in a way. But it's still all deep rock, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
I didn't really explain that. We're basically sort of stealing ideas, which is why we need to agree on a title for the series, basically, because I've got no idea what to call this. Or at least I do have an idea. I just need to make sure it's okay. And I said before we started recording, I said the only problem is I'm not sure if it's too hostile or not. So using the example of Terraria instead of like saying, you know, X, because it doesn't work. It doesn't sound right. You need to use an actual example. This one would be called "What DRG Can Take from Terraria Literally."
Um, I don't know why the literally is there.
Because people would just take it as what DRG should learn from Terraria or something like that, as if it's some kind of criticism video, which they still might.
Yeah.
But I want it to invoke that though, but then for it to be something else instead of us just calling it stealing ideas from Terraria for Deep Rock. I want it to almost appear like it's one of those videos, only for it to clearly be something else.
Yeah, well, then I think you don't really need the literally then. I don't know. The literally just, I don't know.
We can trial it. We can trial it without the literally. You don't have to put it there at first. It can come later.
All right. So let's probably start then.
Right? Yeah. So obviously we have the Terraria wiki up. That's how it works. Look at all this stuff. There's so much stuff to choose from, and Terraria always seemed like a natural starting point for me. It's almost what inspired it. But this isn't about crossovers, by the way. And obviously Terraria is big on crossovers, and I'd love for Terraria to get a crossover with Deep Rock. But you know, we talked about that before. It would benefit Terraria more than anything. Not just because then Ghost Ship aren't even particularly interested in crossovers, and they wouldn't really want to devote the resources to making content like directly from another game. But it's because it would benefit Terraria more, and it always does. Their crossovers, they always benefit Terraria more than anyone else. Because Terraria is already better than the other thing. And yes, that includes Deep Rock, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, just going off this screen, you could pick anything you wanted. I don't know if it's a random page function or something, but we don't actually need that necessarily, because I reckon we could easily get by with just the couple of things that will come to mind, or even possibly the many things that will come to mind, such as ammunition.
It's definitely some areas where we could take a lot from, some areas where there's not much, right? Like we're not gonna get much from paint, like,
no, actually, no, we're not.
Beans, right? There's not much in there. The NPCs, I doubt we'll get much from, other than maybe the demolitionist somehow.
I was thinking about the demolitionist.
Yeah, there are some other things. Like I feel like the mechanics area could be quite interesting to get some stuff from, like the aggro, that kind of thing. And obviously items. As much as we're probably not going to steal many melee weapons because we are on the side of people doesn't need melee weapons. The ranged weapons part is a
I want to point out I'm on the side of the classes shouldn't get straight up melee weapons for their primaries or secondaries. I think there's potential for some other kind of implementation, but it does not exist in that space. I'm not massively for it either. That's the thing. But my the first thing I thought of was cursed darts. Anyone be wondering what's a cursed dart, Harry? Or Tyler? Yeah, ask Tyler. A cursed dart. It drips. Basically, I find the dart thing pretty cool. Obviously, every weapon in Terraria, there's a bunch of different type of ammo you can use for it. But the dart gun and the dart rifle are quite condensed. As in, there's not many weapons that use darts, and they have a very limited ammo pool. But it's sort of as in a limited number of different types of ammo. But it does remind me of the crossbow in a couple of ways. So I thought, well, which of the darts could be like new bolts, basically? And I thought, well, we don't have like a third bolt, as in I sort of view it as you got the special bolt, so you got the 3 special bolts, and then you've got the weird ones like the unstable ones, but you also have the other other elemental ones. You've got fire, ice, and I feel like corrosion should be there as well. So I had what I think is not a bad idea for an overclock. That would be like the acid bolt or the goo bolt. It would essentially be this. But with corrosion. But that means it would be a mini version of Goo Bomber Special, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it could even have like the downside of like reducing the bolt like velocity, but that would actually be a benefit in that case. But either way, that's just sort of I don't know how representative of that like that will be of every idea you're going to come up with, because it's sort of like that you could have already gotten that just by looking at the fire and ice bolt and thinking there should be another one, and then looking at Goo Bomber Special. But what this does still led me to it. There is also the existence of Cursed Flame itself, which I don't know if I want to do anything with that, but you could.
How is Cursed Flame any different from fire?
Well, in Terraria, you've got fire. You've got like 3 levels of fire. You've got fire, normal fire. You've got Frostburn, and then you've got Cursed Flame.
And you can stack all 3 of those, right?
Yeah.
Is that the real point?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not sure the game needs any more stuff like that, since as much as it's not 3 different types of fire, there's still, fire, electric, corrosion, that kind of stuff. You can stack all them. I don't think they'd need a Cursed Flame variant at this point. I think the cold burn is definitely something they should look into, right? Enemies that are frozen would be a nice, a cryo cannon upgrade. Enemies frozen will take damage over time, like Frostfire one.
Yeah, you could just call that Overclock Frostburn or upgrade.
I think that's a pretty common sense one, because it will kind of play into, once they're frozen, you don't have to finish them off, because some people do have an issue with that with the cryo cannon. That it's then a mandatory other switching weapon or someone else killing them. Like it's something like that, and that would be a pretty good overcook for them, and that would be like the Frostburn. But I think there's another thing that we could take from this. Not just the darts, but like probably the weapons that use darts. As in a dart gun could be an interesting one. It'd be difficult to differentiate entirely from crossbows, since darts are quite similar to arrows, I would imagine.
Yeah. Also, really doesn't suit anyone other than the scout. Once again, but you look at the dart rifle. That's much more of a scout primary, though, isn't it? Very least. To have that on its side. And it wouldn't be like switching between ammo types either. I guess you would just have you wouldn't switch on the fly. I don't know. But yeah, I guess this might open the can of worms, which is Terraria's ranged weapons. There's the dart rifle.
So
look at that. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like dart rifle is probably around in the area of things they haven't tried on Deep Rock yet. Maybe for a good reason, because once again, I don't know what it would provide. But then maybe just like I don't know, like it would end up being like a quasi semi-automatic like M1000 essentially. Like it would be a slow firing but consistent, like how it's shooting right now, like as you can see, like something like that. I don't think would hurt for a scout to have as a primary, with a ticking thing after as well.
I do like the idea of like a sort of quite basic weapon, like a ballistics weapon that it's not literally firing an element, but the stuff it fires is still like inherently carries with it some kind of. I just like the idea of stacking damage over time. Some kind of poison or bleed. Bleed we bring up quite often.
Yeah.
And you would have that something where it would shoot like thorns or spikes, and the more you stick it to an enemy, the more damage it takes over time. And you wouldn't actually deal a lot of damage from the actual hit itself, either. Something like that. I don't know if the stake launcher is like that, because I thought of the stake launcher. I don't think it actually does that. Stake launcher is ridiculous, though. It's sort of just has like I don't know if it has infinite penetration, but it's just depend. Look at that. Oh, it shows the limit.
I mean, the stake launcher is essentially a crossbow, right? Like that's literally a crossbow with a stake in it.
Yeah, although what I just explained is not what the stake launcher does, and it's not what the stakes do either. But it is what I made it do, because I did one of my crossbow clocks was like the stake launcher, basically. But you just fired stakes into enemies to stack a bleed effect. You might be noticing a trend there. We want the stacking bleed effect. Apparently, it has like 1,000% damage boost against vampires.
Oh.
which obviously
sense.
makes sense. But how many vampires are there?
Doesn't affect vampire miners.
Morning wood.
Yeah, N-type enemy. I mean, we might go into enemies probably as well.
I was thinking the best things. Actually, I didn't know what the best things would be. Actually, I'm thinking about it. There's a lot for pretty much every corner of Deep Rock take from Terraria. Really.
Yeah.
I
think just slap us onto like ranged weapons. I think that will be a good gold mine.
Why does it not have like the ranged weapon category here? It is the stake launcher. All right, we can go to weapons. I think this has every weapon listed in this page, Tyler.
I don't think get much from yo-yos in this.
Sometimes I think about bows in Terraria, and they're kind of weird, aren't they? Because they still have like projectile drop off, but they all just point and shoot. There's no like pull back like bow mechanics at all. But yeah, I don't really think these bows are going to be of much use. The bee's knees, but that's bees. That's something else. These are the bows that make me wish that we did have a bow. You know, like these, like the Eventide or something. Just absolute nonsense. Daedalus storm bow, but I don't see how that would fit into Deep Rock. You know, because we know how the storm bow is when you're underground.
Yeah,
it doesn't really work. It doesn't. Yeah. The aerial bane though I like, because basically aerial bane has this effect when you hit anything that's in the air. It will like do extra damage to them and send the projectiles downwards in this spread. Basically, I'm just getting at anti-air. There's nothing in Deep Rock that is inherently anti-air. In fact, the only thing that was removed, to be fair, which was the Mactera toxin rounds for the Sparta.
Right,
but I still want more stuff in that like department, like Thunderhead getting flak rounds or something. That was just sort of Carpet Bomber possibly just having some kind of proximity destination.
Having something like this.
Something like this.
Hit in air would drop some bombs below it or some shit.
Or it's like a weird PGL overclock where it's like a cluster grenade, except they're all like full like normal grenade strength, but you have to hit an air-borne enemy to cause it to happen or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it would be like clean's probably not the right one, but yeah, like if you hit an airborne enemy, it will do like a special effect essentially.
Yeah,
which it's not really anything in the game, I don't think.
No,
it's not like special.
I guess the most actually thing is just the mechanic of freezing them. But at the bit, obviously, there's Betsy there, and obviously, I think we both want dragons in Deep Rock for whatever reason, but I don't think we should go to Betsy because that's not really, that's not really from Terraria. I think the aerial bane is. That's the thing. I don't know about those weapons though. I think they are original, kind of.
The summons and the armors, like the sentries and the armors, are from the original game. Like they're not from Terraria. They're from Dungeons & Dragons 2. They're the sentries or some of these.
Oh yeah, I know the sentries are from. Absolutely, yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that bow and some of the other things. I don't think they're
no
the game.
But also we have the repeaters, and it's like, oh, a crossbow. But obviously we went with the stake launcher. I mean, the shot bow is the only one that's actually got anything like inherently unique about it, which is just that it fires multiple. But then it's like, that's not crazy either.
It's tri-bolts.
You could do tri-bolts. I mean, you might as well might as well.
Well, another
if it
thing,
works, then you should do it, but don't just do it for the sake of it.
I realise now we both kind of copied this in the Overclock workshop, but I would just like a repeater crossbow overclock, to where you can just hold down the trigger and it's just automatic.
Yeah,
it shoots like good solid amount of normal shots like quickly.
But did it also like quarter like the damage and then double the ammo as well of the normal shots? And it would have to make that kind of thing feel good, or at least double. You know, you can't really have the normal amount of normal shots that you have on an automatic version of it. But then you could go to the glorified arrows, but they just bounce around, which is kind of just and they bounce around randomly. You know, bodkin points bounce around with purpose. Guns.
Yeah.
Guns.
Right.
Boomstick. Quad barrel shotgun. Yes, please. There's not as many guns as I thought, is there? But you know, it's enough. It's definitely enough. Sand gun. Sand gun fires terrain.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think the game would explode if you were to shoot. I guess that's actually the platform gun. Terrain that kills might be hard. What's the pneumatic horn?
That's from the deer clops.
Right.
It just fires random shit. Like, as in, it's okay. So this is actually kind of cool. It's note how the damage varies depending on the projectile being fired. It fires random objects, and each different object has a different amount of damage it deals. Which is obviously kind of just a homebrew powder-esque thing. But I like the idea of a weapon that just has a bunch of random projectiles that it fires, and each one's kind of different. Like, it can fire it's like just like a scrap cannon, like a junk cannon. It just fires bits of rubbish. You don't quite know what's going to come out. So it sort of has like a range of how powerful it is.
Varying sizes, varying damage.
It's essentially a way of making homebrew powder like a gimmick for a weapon, like as its foundation, almost. But they could even have different effects. Even like the Celebration Mark II, like all the different rockets it fires, like have different explosion, like movement paths as well, and explosion sizes. Kind of wild. I just opened HP support assistant. Ignore that. Hold on. Okay, let's go back to the guns though. I mean, I'm not. This is the thing. This is why I realise now I wasn't particularly wrong, because I look at the guns and it's not like, what can you really take that's inherently unique enough for Deep Rock, you know? Some of it's pretty cool. Like the Venus Magnum's awesome. Like, but we already have. Unfortunately, Sparta is like fire as fast as you can pull the trigger. We've got that. But there is the Vortex Beater, which fires grenades as well as bullets.
I think
so. Do that then for like the GK2 or something.
I do think the GK2 an interesting, because I kind of really hope that with these new overclocks they're cooking, they're actually like striving to make them interesting, and I think giving weapons.
Well, I think that's why. I think that's why they're sort of taking a long time, not necessarily to make them, but just spending a long time deciding whether or not they actually want to do that. Because I don't think they want to just come out with a bunch of, cleans, or I don't think they want any boring ones to be there. They're sort of probably weighing up pros and cons, and maybe they're struggling to make enough interesting ones for every weapon. They probably don't want it. Like, you look at something like the Warthog or the Zukovs, which are fairly boring and also small selections of overclocks, and that means they might be struggling again to do give them interesting ones because they couldn't in the first place, and they just might not have it for some of them.
I feel like this kind of thing might be a key. Giving them alternate firing modes, or alternate stuff. Like, I'm thinking for imagine the thing on the GK. If you I don't know, double tap reload, or maybe just, I don't know, if you don't need to reload and you try reloading, it shoots like a rocket launcher or like a grenade out.
Yeah,
something like that.
Well, that's the thing, because we don't know if they tried it or not. But from the way it looks, it's like they just haven't cracked giving magazine weapons alternate firing modes. It just feels like they didn't figure it out. I'm not saying they even tried, but I feel like they should have tried. And if they did, then they didn't get it. But I feel like, the things that have alternate firing modes, or like modes that you can switch, it's always just press reload. But it's always for things where, the crossbow is a one clip magazine, so you just switch to the other magazine. Or, the cryo cannon, where it doesn't have a magazine, you just press X to use whatever it is. Or a weapon that doesn't have a magazine but also isn't automatic, you just hold the trigger to activate its charge thing. What's wrong with double tapping reload? That's the way you would do it for a magazine weapon.
Either that, or like if you press reload while holding down shoot, it
Yeah,
would shoot out that. And if
but
your
the
aim's
vortex beater fires a grenade every like a certain amount of shots, and obviously the
yeah,
GK2 thing, it was like it could either be what you were just describing, but it would have like its own separate ammo pool. But that would make it feel like you just have a grenade launcher attached to the GK2, which is a thing, but that's not what the Vortex Beater is. And if I want to say more inspiration from that, it would be more part of the actual weapon's normal function, where you would need to sort of almost plan how many bullets you use, because it would fire it every like 5 bullets or something. It would
yeah,
fire the
which is
grenades.
why I don't think that is just
And it
the
wouldn't need
worst
to
option.
be in alternate firing mode then either.
Yeah, but that would be bad. It would become more annoying than anything, and it's just less engaging, right? Like the GK2 needs more interesting, engaging overclocks, right? Like because the GK2 it's strong, which is how it gets away with it most of the time. But it is a very simple point and click, and that's all it ever really is. It's quite similar to the Warthog in that regard. It needs more than just sometimes a grenade sends out. It needs to be when you choose to, you can do a burst AOE of damage, right? That you lit up a horde, bang, or you just need to finish off that Praetorian right now and move on, bang, like that kind of thing.
That would definitely work if you gave it some kind of shotgun mode as well, which I think
So
would
yeah,
suit it as well. But like, I mean, obviously that would make sense to take from the main ammo pool, but I would even make the argument for the grenades that it shouldn't be separate. It should almost use up the bullets, which obviously doesn't make a lot of sense, but that would stop it. I don't necessarily like the idea of just giving the GK2 like a separate ammo pool.
no, I think of it like Snowball then.
Yeah, I think yeah, exactly like Snowball. But that because obviously that makes more sense for the shotgun thing. But I think if you gave it a grenade thing, it should still work like that, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Even though it doesn't make much sense.
You could say that it like compacts 5 like bullets worth of like gunpowder and
Yeah,
metal into
exactly.
a projectile, some shit like that.
Well, yeah, because like grenades, a lot of people don't realize it. Every grenade is essentially a shrapnel grenade. That's what people think of a frag grenade like it's just a standard explosive grenade, but part of the lethality of it is it's a fragmentation grenade. It shoots out fragments of itself. I mean, so that's just part of the normal explosion. And it's just like, so basically the idea is that the GK2 has some kind of like cement mixer inside it that just mashes all the bullets together. So it's just this massive like shredded metal and gunpowder.
Would if you pick this overclock, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the only way, because they would want to explain it, which I find funny. Sometimes they don't bother explaining how the overclock works, and sometimes they do.
Yeah.
Although usually, honestly, the more complicated ones, they actually try and give it not realistic, but still like a scientific explanation, But then it's like you get like the Smart Rifles armor break mod too. It just says breaks armor at full locks. It's like, wow, holy shit. But then it's like the fear upgrade on it. It's like they talk about how they hollowed out the bullets and stuff like this. All this weird shit. It's pretty cool. But that's I don't really see what else you can get of the guns themselves.
We've got a good amount in just that.
But there's more guns than just guns. There's launchers. Ooh. Now, something like the grenade. I like the Terraria grenade launcher. It's a lot better than the PGL. And so we don't have a rocket launcher. There's sort of these weird things. Proximity mine launcher. Well, we've got proximity mines. I don't think you need a launcher necessarily.
No, that's mine layer.
There is also a mine layer system. But the electrosphere launcher is where my heart resides. And both something that I do want for Deep Rock and just one of my favourite things in Terraria in general. These things are fucking lit. And it would either be this would make most sense to me as, well, it could be its own weapon, but it would also make sense as an overclock for the PGL or even the Hurricane. And so we love the idea of the Hurricane having like radiation and radiation rings. And I would actually, that's where I would go if I wanted to like take this idea and translate it onto Deep Rock. I wouldn't be like, because obviously we especially wish the Hurricane didn't just have fire, and I include electricity as what would have been a valid alternative. It would have been quite weak, and that would have really opened up the way for Electrosphere. But the radiation idea, it's still like rings of radiation, and the electrosphere launcher is all about like stacking up these little areas of damage. So it's essentially the same
It
thing,
would
just
also
with radiation instead. Just with
would be like a proximity one though. Like the missiles would never actually hit the target, right? That needs to be something. Because first of all, that's sometimes what they do with nukes, right? As Tom talked about, the detonate
airburst.
nukes
Yeah, it's
from
called airburst.
away from it. But also, like if you hit the target, then most of it will probably be under the floor. But if it's just like as soon as it gets near, it'll be like the whole radius, like it's kind of visible.
Well,
The
well,
airborne
the
fire
electrosphere launcher doesn't rely on impact either. Like it just detonates where your cursor is when you fire, basically.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. The electrosphere launcher isn't infinite really range, is it?
Well, you can, when you have it, you can push your cursor to the edge of the screen. So it is technically infinite range. Well, no, I mean, because it actually, like, a lot of the projectiles that carry on do travel off the edge of the screen. But electrosphere will only ever go to where your cursor was. Like, that's the longest it can go. But that's the kind of control you would have over like the radioactive rockets or something. Something that you can just detonate in midair. I kind of like as well. The Martian saucer. What about the Martian saucer? It's like a nemesis, really, isn't it?
The caretaker.
Or a caretaker. No, it's so fucking fast as well. Either way, he's not on the table yet. Go back. Come on, don't be slow. The wiki's been slow.
Very slow.
Because there's all these fucking ads, is what it is. Yeah, and then there's the celebration. I mean, the celebration is not irrelevant. I kind of like the idea of a fireworks launcher at one point. It would just be a really unpredictable, like rapid fire explosive weapon. You know, it would be quite difficult to. It would be like very like exciting and like a lot of firepower, but it would be very like unpredictable. But it's quite basic, you know, not like a
Nail gun.
complex idea. Nail gun. Shit. Okay. Right, the nail gun. But the nail gun's post Plantera. I always forget. What do they actually do? Oh. And then they explode. They embed themselves and then explode. Sure. Why not?
Bullets that can land on an enemy.
Yeah, I do kind of want something like that as well. You essentially create sort of traveling death traps for themselves, but more so for the enemies around them. So you essentially have the mines travel with an enemy. As in, I think mine layer system would be better, you know, because mine layer system, if you hit an enemy, they explode as normal, dealing the normal amount of damage. I'd much rather they embed themselves as mines on the enemy as well. But that might be a bit silly. And then mine layer system would be legitimately overpowered. Not that its actual like potential power isn't overpowered, but that build itself isn't like it's almost like the reason it gets away with it is because it's so much so not everyone's cup of tea. That's how mine layer system gets away with being so strong, because it just doesn't feel good to use for a lot of people, which is kind of sad. Consumables, grenades, the grenades. I mean, they got the javelins. I've always wanted a javelin. It's like that would be like a gunner's like melee grenade with the javelin. And then the shuriken or throwing knife was always meant to be scouts, and then the boomerang would have been engineers.
Yeah.
But you know how it went. What?
I think spiky ball is pretty good. Like a grenade that you would have like, I don't know, you'd have like maybe 8 of them, and it would throw like 5 spiky balls or something on the floor.
Oh, that'd be lovely.
It would just deal damage to anything that walks in it.
Like caltrops.
Or, I don't know, probably a certain amount of damage.
Yeah.
Something like that would be nice.
I mean, the poison knife was kind of the idea of one of the throwing knife ideas, where it would kind of have the
a lot of throwing knife.
The chemical rounds like effect in the knives, but that almost made less sense for scout, I suppose. Bouncy grenade That's just a plasma burster.
Lightning.
What is the happy grenade? They inflict half the damage of an ordinary grenade and display a confetti effect. What? Okay, it must be acquired initially from a drop by the party girl. So you need to, and she doesn't actually drop them, but then you can buy them afterwards. Is that cheap? If that, I mean, I suppose it would be good if they're cheaper than the normal grenades, but I don't think they are. No, no, the happy grenades are 2 silver 50, and the normal grenades are 75 copper.
It's a Terraria video.
What? Wait, isn't it? Did you say this isn't a Terraria video? Did you just say this?
Yeah, we're not talking about like Terraria.
Benade. We got it already. That happened. That happened already. Harpoon. Ale tosser. Oh my god, the ale tosser would be amazing, actually. Now that I think about it. The ale tosser allows the player to throw ale. I think you just buy
Scroll
like
down to what it. Just scroll down to the visuals. Like that's just right.
I just mean turning beer into weapons is something I adore, especially for the craft beers. I mean, I've talked about this in the beer video, where if you have some kind of weapon or some way to use those as weapons, then you've got a lot of different options there. You've got the fire and ice stuff as well. You've got like a boogie bomb essentially, and all this stuff. So if we've got like I don't know what you would call it. It would be some kind of like brewmaster like gun, and it would have like a vat, and you would choose from like all the different beers or something as your ammo. I don't know.
No. You wouldn't choose. It would be random.
That would be the random one with it, and it would choose from all the different craft beers as its ammo. Yeah. Something daily specials doesn't make much sense as ammo, but the craft beers, like I just explained, it's all like fire and ice, and or like the wormhole would like teleport enemies away from you and stuff like that. It would. I think there's a solid idea there, and that's how you use the ale tosser. Also, genuinely, just using alcohol is not an insignificant part of Deep Rock. I think the dwarves would love the weaponized beer somehow. That's what I'm saying. They would love it. So, come on, guys. The ale tosser. Elf melter. I know it's just a flamethrower, but the elf melter. You know, people want to melt those elves. It is also blue fire. All right, that's outdated. This footage is outdated.
That is wrong.
Yeah.
Lied.
Well, who's lying?
You.
No, I'm not.
There you are.
How do you know?
Don't.
You don't. Do you not remember me using the elf melter? Like a big, like blue wave.
Used to acknowledge.
All right. Where's the stuff?
We're gonna get.
What?
Oh, are you not done?
Not necessarily. I mean, the piranha gun is like something you just shoot stuff out, and it goes to enemies, and you hold down the trigger, and you deal as much damage as you want, basically. But you can't shoot out more projectiles while you're dealing damage. So that's just like something, potentially. You know? Yes? Right, wait. Were you about to say something?
Not really.
No.
Not sure how much we'll get from magic weapons.
No. That's because we don't have the warlock class.
Maybe, we could. There's an argument for like elemental weapons for drillers primaries. Could probably get something
Something that isn't electricity. The weather pane.
Like shoots out basically a little tornado, doesn't it?
Well, that would be perfect, isn't it? Because that's sort of one of the Driller seems to be has this sort of like fantasy archetype element thing going on. Whereas in that sense, it could have been electricity or corrosion, but corrosion is one of those. But then air or wind as an element is pretty common. And that's why you sort of bring up something like that uses air, something like the thunder gun, or something that shoots little tornadoes. Why not?
Yeah. At home as well.
Oh, they wouldn't need to do that. You could just shoot out little cyclones that sort of they can't really draw enemies in. They can't suck enemies in. But also, it wouldn't make
That's
sense
why
for
they
it to
would
be a
go
lure.
to the enemies.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be like as much as probably as strong as this, but more of just like a light homing. Like I don't know what likely homes.
The vault from
What?
Titanfall.
That it was thinking of Deep Rock, you know.
Oh, what likely homes in Deep Rock?
Yeah.
I don't think anything that does.
I know there's like one thing that's supposed to, but I never even seen it. Like the crossbow, electric.
Oh yeah, that
Right.
would be it. Yeah, yeah.
I've never noticed it. So
Magnetic
like,
shaft.
yeah.
Yeah, magnetic shaft. Or an inferno fork. No, actually, not the inferno fork. Stop it, stop it. Why has it gone back up to bows again?
It's doing that.
It's because it's a terrible. No, it's not a terrible website. It's actually one of the most useful websites for me. It's extremely useful. You do have things though, like the meteor staff or the staff of Earth, which, if I remember correctly, does just summon a boulder. Oh, kind of. It actually shoots a boulder now. Oh, oh my. But then, like
Yeah, something like that.
Earth as an
Yeah.
element is another one of like the core like fantasy elements, isn't it? So you can give him something like that. Quake gun, or just a boulder gun. Although that sort of leans into that thing that we came up with of the sludge pump charge shots bouncing. Remember that one?
Yeah, that was one.
Yeah. What is all this
It would
shit?
be like the boulders.
Boulder shoulder.
Magic guns.
Magic guns. The Zappinator. That just, I mean, I don't even talk about the Zappinator, but that's just like, just that ridiculous, weird, unpredictable, almost like glitch type weapon, which every game deserves one of those, basically.
Hmm.
I think. B gun slash wasp gun. There could be something there.
Honestly, I could see a driller getting a bee gun, and I mean literally like bees, because bees are in the game, right? like
Yeah, and it would be like,
getting all the
how would
bees
it?
into it.
It would use those bees, and you would collect. You wouldn't collect the bees. Maybe there's some way you could collect the bees. But either way, I mean, that would be fun though. If you got a bee gun, and if you happen to be in the hollow barrel sandblasted corridors, you can use the beehives to refill it. You can use. But either way, there's probably some guy, some bee nerd in R&D. He's like a beekeeper, and he's like trained them or something, and they just like
Yeah.
reproduce. And
It would
he's
be
got
like the same as repurposing the shredder swarms, right?
yeah,
It would just be like
hacked the bees.
yeah, like they're like we put a queen bee inside the gun, so they treat like the gun or like you as their mother essentially, and they
What
will
the fuck?
fight to save them.
No. It's because the driller is the first thing they see when they're born.
You just got like a photo of him like in front of like a giant bee cage. But yeah, I don't know. I think I could see a bee gun mechanic. Because arguably they could use like a poison. It could be poison type damage, right? That would be something. But it could also be a driller primary that doesn't rely on a like status effect.
It's
Which I
just the
feel
power
like
of nature. That's the
yeah,
element. The element of nature. Yeah, I sort of
element
see it
of
as like
millions of bees.
I would see it as something like it would function not too dissimilarly from the shredders, but one of the most particular things about it would be you have control over the size of the swarm. Essentially, you could just fire one
It'll
out
be
and see how much it does. As in, I feel like how much. If you want to think about it on like a weird sort of pseudo technical level, how much damage could one bee do? Could like kill like a couple swarmers or something? Or if you're thinking like big ammo pool?
I'm thinking 100,000 ammo.
You mean that, don't you? Because
it'd be like, yeah.
I'm not against that. I just mean that is like just the numbers is ridiculous in comparison to what we have.
Yeah, it would be like 100,000 ammo. You tap the thing for like a second, and it releases like I don't know, maybe 500 ammo in an instant. Like it's 500 ammo per shot, or some shit like that. So it essentially releases like 500 bees at a time. It would just be like, obviously they're bees like the bees are currently in the game, where
Yeah, the
it's
bee.
essentially
Not
just
every
visual
single bee is like an
numbers.
individual asset. It's
No,
like
but it would be
the
like
asset is
a
a cloud of bees.
yeah, it is a cloud, is a ball, and if something is in that ball, which the ball homes, I would imagine the and not like and are probably about as much as the bees currently are in the game. They slowly drift towards you,
It would be like a
which I guess
damage over
bees do
time
like
status
so well.
effect without like the symbol or the element. You would just like have like a swarm of bees lock onto an enemy and they would
Yeah.
just kill it over time, which is once again not too dissimilar from how the shredders work. To be fair, because they do apply a damage
Yeah,
over
and then
time
it could
effect.
be that the beehive, as it does, like the swarm, as it does damage, it slowly dissipates. And obviously, it's not going to be equal to like 500 damage. Is that too much or too little? Do you think for that kind of situation?
Oh,
Right?
well, hold 500 damage. What do you mean? How quickly or how much ammo 500 damage
Will
from?
you shoot right? Maybe 100,000 is probably a stupid amount. But like probably wouldn't be far off that. I mean, if you shoot 500 ammo per shot, um, and you were that shot did like 500 damage. How many shots would be reasonable?
Oh, um, ah, that's difficult to say. Um,
How much potential damage do like most other guns have on average? Do you think?
like, oh, I don't know actually, because like the range of that kind of thing is pretty vast. If I wanted to like really like quickly like hash out a really like basic average, I would like jump to, and then I don't know if you should factor in upgrades or not. Maybe
But
not.
maybe also, I mean, because
That's like
different
six
classes have
thousand, and
different averages.
that's actually on the lower end.
What
Yeah,
was it?
you would want to look more at Driller himself
Yeah,
then, but then it's like actually a lot. Theoretical maximum multi-target damage is 35,000.
yeah.
I feel like you would
I mean,
start at something like 25,000 as like the base,
yeah, 25,000, and you essentially potentially do as much damage as you have bullets.
like a similar
Um,
amount.
you
Yeah.
shoot like 500 at a time, and maybe it would be like a plum, 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 like as you hold down the trigger, it would like release
Mm.
like puff and puff of bees. Um, and yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, shit you not, I actually really like this idea. I
Yeah, because
really
well,
yeah,
we've
I
talked
don't know.
about a bee gun before, like a swarm gun,
Yeah,
and lots of people
yeah,
have. It's just it's an idea that comes up a lot, and it's one of those ones where I feel like if we get a fourth generation of weapon, it's actually really up there because
I mean,
it's very unique, and it's also been suggested a lot as
if they
well.
do want to do like if they still want to make it an element, poison as a primary for gunner would be wild, right? Like that would be not inventing a new one. That would be like the least likely element you would expect, right? Like everyone's like Tesla gun or like
Well,
I don't know.
I would make them little like electrically charged
Challenge.
bees. I would, you know.
Yeah, I wouldn't because fuck electricity.
Yeah, but poison can't hurt robots.
And I don't know. You would make them do the half each. Um,
Oh,
it would be like each bee would do half, like 0.5 poison and 0.5 normal damage. Um,
yeah, like how the wave cooker, which doesn't like inherently set things on fire or inherently radiate things. It's like 50% fire damage and 50% radiation damage. You can do
yeah,
that. They do weird shit like that. So yeah, and like I just mentioned, I think it is one of the ones that is up there in terms of likelihood. You know, swarm
yeah.
just that shoots a swarm of shit.
Yeah, the
Oh
swarm
shit.
would like slowly get weaker as like it does damage.
Yeah. In terms of the other magic guns, I'm not sure what else I really care about. I mean, because like, the heat ray is something quite basic, but like just an instant single shot beam. But you know, they would it needs to go further than that. I like the fact that the heat ray has like you have like a backpack that stores its ammo. But I don't know where you go with that. Could do something with the rainbow gun, but as in I don't know if I care. But the
Do
rainbow
something
gun's
with a
pretty
breach
weird.
cutter.
What?
Probably do something with the breach cutter and the.
Oh, that'd be weird. Also, where is it? Where's the footage? Oh, there it is. Look at that. Well, personally for me, it would be something like, because I don't care if you disagree with this. I think the Hurricane is begging to have some kind of trail where you can guide those rockets, which would essentially mean you could paint a trail in the air of some kind.
I don't care enough about the
And that's
Hurricane to
how it'd
disagree
be.
with you on that.
Well, that's fine with me. Because that means you don't disagree. Which means you agree.
Golden
Spells.
Shower.
No, don't bring up the golden shower. Or do.
Equal primary. It's
Yeah.
essentially the corrosion, though. It's, both gets rid of armor.
Yeah. That's actually a weird way to look at it, but it's definitely true. Aside from usually most things that get hit by the Sludge Pump do die. Demon Scythe. Now, I clicked on Demon Scythe because I had this idea already. Which is...
Or down the gallery. Or not. It doesn't have one.
Shit.
Which is surprising, because it's the fucking Demon Scythe.
I think that's what it is. What if we click on this? What's going to happen?
You need to log in.
Oh, no. I wonder how easy this would be. Hold on. Terraria Demon Scythe GIF. Right, that's the Death Sickle. Yeah, that's what it does. And I kind of... Why has it gone green?
Trying to make a Zenith book idea for a mod.
Basically, a breach cutter overclock where it just starts slow and then just speeds up like way faster than normal, which is be weird. That's all it is. But might be something there where like it could do a shit ton of damage to something really close to you at first, and then it could go on to deal like a little bit of damage to lots of things. Which is kind of weird. Like playing with the movement of the beam, I think is interesting. That's why I like Spinning Death and Return to Sender. Although they're not great, I still want to see more overclocks that play with the movement of it. And it's just that the Demon Scythe represents an interesting movement like pattern for it.
Yeah.
Sick. I like the Magnet Sphere. Razor Blade Typhoon's ridiculous, but the Magnet Sphere is cool because it's just a thing that travels, just this ball that travels and deals damage to things around it automatically. It's the kind of thing that would feel very strong in a game like Deep Rock, though.
That would be like a variant of the electric primary. Like instead of it just being a straight up like Winston Tesla cannon, it would be just like it would shoot out an electrical orb that would just like change everything it touches. Or, like,
it could even be like a really weird breach cutter overclock where it's like unstable and it just tethers to things as it moves along.
Yeah.
I like the Magnet Sphere. Let's just watch it for a little bit.
No.
What do you mean? That's satisfying as hell.
Really?
I remember when I kind of thought that like mimics would just the things that you could spawn with statues would like drop shit. Obviously not true. I know it's actually taking its time. It's not even playing the GIF. We don't even have any entertainment while we wait.
Doesn't even show the doing anything.
Doing something. All right, we're back. Wait, what the fuck is all this shit? A guitar. We need a guitar. We need a musical weapon. Or a Nimbus rod. What about the Nimbus rod?
What about the Nimbus rod?
Nothing. Ice rod. AKA it just creates ice. One of us came up with something where the cryo cannon would just like create ice that you could skate on. It's just like turn the floor into ice. Actually,
definitely you.
That was definitely Nimbus rod. But you made one that's where it made clouds. So that's the Nimbus rod. I don't even want to think about the blood form. Summon weapons though. Let's see if we can get anything out of summon weapons. I mean, probably not because you have something like the Deadly Sphere staff, but that's like what shredders do, almost. And it's almost like
all of these are like shredders.
Yeah, all the contact summons definitely are. So
and then the like more ranged ones are just like the sentries. Like
Yeah, well, sentries. Gotta be careful, sentries.
Here is the summon build of.
This is weird because obviously this is pre-hard mode, like sentry weapons. They're all from crossovers. Four of them are from the same one. And there's not that many in the long run that are from Terraria itself. And also, I don't think any of them would necessarily work either. Whips, well, no, probably shouldn't touch whips. That's a melee. We don't do whips. Obviously,
Maybe,
some kind of Beastmaster class would obviously maybe have a whip, but then we're not thinking about classes.
But also maybe the mechanic of like enemies you shoot gets higher priority, like targeting from things. Like it would be on engineer or on something, right? Where the turret and the maybe like or any AI directed attacks will like hone in on whoever you're.
So that's more about the mechanic of the whip, which is just priority targeting. But that's kind of the thing about Hawkeye system and whether or not there's an argument for the laser pointer itself to get upgrades, because Hawkeye system's kind of not great, and it means whatever enemy you ping, your turrets will automatically fire at it when you might even want them to, which is another reason why it's not great. The laser pointer absolutely serves its function in the game, but if it were to say get upgrades, you could have something like an upgrade where it activates target prioritization for everything that you have, which every class could have that, but would benefit engineer the most. But they could still apply to. Actually, the only other thing is Steve, to be fair, because obviously Bosco inherently takes those commands, so that's a bit weird. Yeah.
Just give it to a guy.
A landmine, scarab bomb. Scarab bomb.
We did throw out the scarab bomb, didn't we?
Yeah.
Named it the scarab grenades video.
I mean, to be fair, it's not too. Unless you would implement it as a mining tool, it's not too far from the plasma burster, really.
Yeah.
So it's just like the traveling in a straight line and how it differs based on your position. Obviously, the way they differ in that sense is different because the scarab bomb's its direction is based on where you're standing or whatever, and so that's kind of different from the plasma burster, but still. But straight up, then I think that just explodes in a straight line would be kind of neat. Would work better as a plasma burster upgrade. Holy water. Let's look at the unimplemented weapons. Like the boring. What the fuck is the boring bow?
Find out. Click on it.
As in, that's one I haven't seen before. I don't think.
Unimplemented.
Yeah, there wasn't going to be. Oh. Okay. That's great. Let's get one of those.
Yeah. Well, let's add some unimplemented weapons. Chip, do that.
Like the I can't think of any. I can't.
Rocket burster.
No, rocket rifle, Tyler.
Yeah.
There was also the rocket launcher. They have something against rockets.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
I don't want rockets to ever be good.
I was going to say that. Not Golem Fist.
Well, there is an idea someone likes, or like the mace generally, that you would just shoot out a projectile orb.
On a chain, and then it could work like Golem Fist, or it could be something that you.
Revan that really like that idea.
Well, I think we both did.
Yeah.
But I like my version of it more.
You would have thought.
But obviously we're not actually looking at melee weapons because I want to look at enemies and possibly even biomes. Speaking of bosses, though, well, I don't. No, I don't. Not that Plantera is actually helpful because we've essentially got our Plantera. What I actually want to use Plantera to demonstrate is the need for bosses to have all bosses to have their own music.
Are you gonna click that? The sound. You don't need to do that. It has it right there.
Does it? Now, we can't play much of this, obviously. I just want to demonstrate the point. Basically, just take that. Ask them if you can take that and put it on the when the Corlock fight happens. Because the Corlock doesn't even neither Corlock nor Betsy get any music that plays. You know.
That should be not just a mod. I wouldn't want it as a mod because that would be a scapegoat for ghost shit. But I want someone to make a really good video, and I might if I ever capable of it, where you so accurately demonstrate how if you just actually had cool music play while you did that stuff, or like cool unique music is probably more of a necessary.
How much less frustrating Betsy and the Corlock would be.
And Caretaker and the Omron fight.
Yeah.
If all of those things had their own unique soundtracks which played when you fought them, how much better of an experience they would be. And yeah, I want someone to do that, and that someone might be me if I ever am that bold.
Would you include a little sample of the tracks that the sort of style that you'd want for all of those?
Probably, yeah. I'd just find something that sounds good that would be somewhat related.
Would you agree with me that Plantera's track matches what? That's what I would want for the
Corlock.
Yeah,
that's 110%.
Yeah. To be fair, though, I want to be fair though, because a couple of the Terraria bosses do have their own tracks. It's mainly Empress of Light and Moonlord, though. Pretty much all the others have ones that are shared. There's boss track 1 through 3 and whatnot, and a couple of them have them each. Plantera is obviously he's very important to progression, but it's not the final boss. It's not the first boss. It's not the Wall of Flesh. They just liked Plantera that much that they made its own track, and because it's named after the band Pantera. So they made a track in their style for it. But that's awesome. So
yeah, but I think it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy then, because they added a kick-ass soundtrack to Plantera. Plantera stands out even more.
I want to point out. Another thing I want to get into though. It's I went onto Plantera for the music, but it's not like I don't want them to do more of the Corlock. Imagine the Corlock actually moving like Plantera. You know,
yeah,
that would be fucking incredible. It was that would be either a different form, or you wouldn't. I don't think you should add that to the normal fight. It'll be a different Corlock. It's it can move and the roots pull it around and whatnot.
And again, the Corlock is not that different after his first stage is just average. Then second stage it starts summoning healing, and then third stage it's stage 2 again.
The third stage, it would actually not be a bad idea. They might need to overall make the fight a little bit less lethal, but it would suit the third stage if the heart started moving around, just as a defensive thing more than anything. Yeah.
But however, I would also say that Plantera as a boss would be the most perfect thing for Deep Rock. Because, the point of Plantera is it's essentially one of the only bosses in the game that you're forced to fight in, the caves, right? I mean, I would say Golem as well, but that's not really caves. It's got its own room.
Well, I still love the idea of Golem. We'll get to that.
But Plantera as a boss, kind of sprawls its way through the cave, filling it up with its tendrils and moving through. And if you can picture that in 3D inside Deep Rock,
I can.
Say you're in a vertical cave, right? You're at the bottom and you see Plantera falling its way down from the top, as you're shooting all of its tendrils and shit. It would be mythic that it as a boss in the game. But obviously they can't just steal Plantera unless they did a crossover in which it's still Plantera.
You can you can essentially steal Plantera. And what I mean by that is you have the difference of it being 3D, and you would design it as a Corlock as well. You could get away with it in that sense.
It would look like a plant from the game, and all it really needs to do is just move around using angels, and that's pretty much all you'd need. All the rest of the stuff they sort out from there, right? But Yeah, and actually, in all fairness, I think we might branch off slightly. I'm not sure where you want to go next, but with the other enemy that I would say you kind of have to fight, and wherever you fight them, which obviously you normally would just make an arena, is the queen bee.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, bees.
who, as much as I don't think they need a queen bee, as they have bees, I think it would be quite funny. But I think queen bee is an example of a flying-based enemy, just once again in caves. And I think that's something where queen bee's movement and sporadic nature and charging and summoning bees, but maybe they would summon. Where I'm going with this is Mactera. This would be a Mactera queen. Um, is that essentially like it's a flying based boss that relies on movement and maybe throwing out some minions, which I think is slightly overdone in Deep Rock minion based fighting. So maybe less that, maybe literally, honestly, if they could get away with it, a queen bee wouldn't be the worst shout in the world.
no, and do you know why? Do you know why? Because when it comes to biomes, the hive is something that I really want to see. Because the hive, honestly, it's a pretty, in Terraria, it's not actually a big deal. It's more just an arena, but I can picture it very clearly in Deep Rock. This very like deep orange brownish biome, and you would have like the honey as like a
Honey
thing. It could even
balls,
heal
they
you.
would, like,
It would be
slow
like
you
it would be
down.
like the deep Tora hive, and you could go there, and there'll be like more like deep Tora type enemies and things like that. And
Yeah,
it would even
I
have
love this picture.
hexagonal bits of terrain that sort of stand out as
Because I
well.
think we can both clearly tell that that would mean that season is a bee themed season, and I fucking love that
I want
idea.
the bee
Like,
season. I want the no seriously. Genuinely, the hive I do think is a genuinely good biome idea for Deep Rock. And it's one of the
I
ones that
think
people don't like bring up really at all. I haven't seen it, but it's sort of just like presents it in a pretty concise way. It's just
yeah,
the big. It's just a giant beehive.
I think the only issue is if they added a beehive biome and then they added a queen bee boss, then the people might catch on. You know what I mean? Even though I don't think either of those two things are inherently unique. And like the beehive is technically, is it its own biome, or is it like a mini biome? Is
Well,
that
in
what it
Terraria,
really is?
it's a mini biome, and I wouldn't be
Right.
against them. I'm not against the idea of mini biomes either. I mean, I feel like they almost tried to do that with Rockbox, and it never came to fruition. But basically, if you wanted to make a queen bee boss, though, I would because I like the idea of this as a full-on biome, but you could almost get like sort of like mini hives as well, where you could find the queen bee, and the queen bee could just be this other boss like Betsy, but it would just be more common in the hive. But you could still find it in normal missions because they wouldn't want to like completely segregate it either.
Yeah.
And it would also that could be an opportunity to actually really do the rock pox properly, but in with a different theme. You would want to stop like the bees from making more hives anywhere else,
Yeah.
something like that.
And it may be a pretty good segue because you remember they added rivals. Then soon after rivals, they added this the shredder grenade. Maybe they do the B season, and then the season after,
Get the
when
bee gun.
the shredder gets his primary, yeah. So basically, B season, B season, B season.
Bee season work. Well, it's not. That's not a bad like on the fly pitch. Nice. That we just came up with, but because that sort of that sort of presents the biome, a season that brings a biome as one of its main features and still has it like intertwined in the
Yeah,
season, and it would just make sense. So that's why I think that's not a bad like pitch that we just came up with. You could do the exact same thing, by the way, with Golem, though. For just a different
this
thing,
is an
because this is like the
idea.
Lost City biome idea,
Yeah,
isn't it?
which yeah, I think we're both quite fond of. What? Hold on, is that an actual thing?
What?
Hold up for a second. Is that an actual real boss in the game?
I've told you about Mech Juicer. Mech
Yeah.
Juicer is hold on. I can't remember what the everything world is. I can't remember if that's yeah. So yeah, it's specific. It's a specific seed. It's not. It might be legendary difficulty. What?
Why the balls under the skull head?
Well, no, that's still its. Oh, that's a bit weird. That is a bit weird. Oh. Yeah, I haven't fought Medusa yet. Actually, I think that is from legendary mode. I think that's what the Everything World Seed is, which
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense why classic mode is mentioned. You can't actually play classic mode on a legendary world. Actually, no, you can. I think it upgrades Journeyman to classic, something like that. Oh wait, no, I'm forgetting. I can't remember how you're supposed to fight Medusa. Can't do it in normal runs though, because in the context of where Medusa is a thing, it replaces all three of them, and you just do
Yeah,
it all in
and has
one.
apparently double the health of Moonlord.
Jesus Christ! I mean, it makes more sense as a final boss then, doesn't it? As in,
Maybe.
you should be able to summon it on like normal runs, so you could use it as a final boss. Either way, we were gonna Golem's pretty fucking cool. Because we talked about golems, and I think golems are a cool idea. You know, one of the big ones was the Omoran golem, which could just be its own thing, and it could be used in the Omoran fight as well. But
Yeah.
the golem, like where the lizard temple where it resides, is also not a bad idea for a biome because we like the Lost City biome. It wouldn't entirely be that though. It would be like a normal sort of place. It would be unique in some way, but the main point there would be like structures around, you know, like buildings.
Spoiler, when I think of it, I think less of this and more of Skyrim's
The
Dwemer.
Dwemer, yeah, that's
Is,
fine. Yeah. Well,
so,
this
I mean,
isn't the
probably,
Skyrim video, Tyler. So
yeah, I know, but I think that more really look wise, but I think feel wise, this is certainly Golem is definitely an idea that I've had. Um, just generally, like with that season, it would come, and my picture of an event would be a golem. Essentially, a golem has escaped. Like he's like a sentry that would protect it. Is now wandering off. Like it's been reawakened. Like the whole thing's been emerged, and they're now wandering around. And you would have to hunt them down essentially, or just protect yourself if they hunt you down. And it would be like a golem, but with my idea, I basically cut off the legs. It would be like a golem that's like just moves around on his arms, and I think that would look kind of cool.
oh my god, I would love that.
Yeah.
That's
And
weird.
yeah, so I think Golem's definitely there as far as it we should get in the game because it is like a quasi fantasy thing as well. Yeah, it really doesn't have to be. All it essentially needs to be is a stone based enemy. Which essentially we've already got ebonite glyphids in that, which I don't think we could call golems since they were originally glyphids, but they've been, taken over.
Not that we don't want more ebonite.
Yeah, obviously. But
I don't know how I don't know how I feel about ebonite and Mactera though, unless they were so heavy that they get weighed down to the ground.
That could be like a really interesting like thing. Like the ancient city, what happened to it was that ebonite took it over. Essentially, and everyone got turned to stone and shit. Like that's how it fell. Was ebonite. I think that would be really fucking sick.
Or some kind of underground like eruption. Like it's like Pompeii, basically.
Yeah,
but underground.
And yeah, ebonite took everything over, and like yeah. So and I don't know, but yeah, Golem as an enemy and the ancient race ruins as a biome is like up there.
I don't think they could call the season the Lost City. I think they might be stealing from something there. But either way, the Lost City as a concept is one of my faves. Just it would be a great season theme, but it's just a great idea for biome.
They played around with, right? That's what the rivals were going to be when they were first coming up.
Exactly, which actually that's good because you throw all these ideas at the wall and you just have no idea how if Ghost Ship has ever even considered them, right? But when you find one that you know they have, it's sort of I don't know if it's better or worse because obviously they scrapped it.
They scrapped it for like they didn't scrap it.
They don't. They never scrap things like 100%, do they?
Yeah.
Except water.
It doesn't feel like they hated the ancient idea. It was just more that they probably the game mode and they preferred a rival company because I wouldn't blame them for that. But I do think they can understand and see the appeal of an ancient civilization in Hoxie's. They can probably understand that just as everyone else that would be fucking awesome.
Yep.
But yeah, Golem would be cool.
Yeah, that's what
it would have to look quite different from that for legal reasons.
Now, I don't want to completely ignore the mechanical bosses. Not necessarily the twins, more so the Destroyer, and that includes the Eater of Worlds. So I guess the Destroyer is sort of like a bit secondary. It's Eater of Worlds is there, but just giant worm. They sunk the city with a giant worm.
Yeah.
Um, giant worm, easy as that. Eater of Worlds, fantastic inspiration for it. That's all I'm saying. That's literally it. But the Destroyer, was only like by itself interesting because of the rivals. I wish the rivals had a destroyer, like just a giant robotic worm. And that's the only reason I would want the rivals to come back though, is if they've got a giant worm. So yeah, on that. Moon Lord, pirates, Morningwood, Santa, all this shit, solar pillars. This idiot.
Cram.
Did you ever fight Okram?
Old consoles. Is it on phone version? Windows
Uh,
phone.
This Windows Phone.
I don't think I ever reached him. But I fought against Lepus quite a few times.
I've never done these guys. Can we get lepers next Easter? As a boss. Looks like such an idiot. Anyway, I actually can't. Not much else coming to mind because I was going to sort of go through the bosses and also do biomes as a separate thing. But I don't know if you want to go to the biomes page because
I think we'll go biomes now.
the Hive was the only biome that I had in mind immediately. And if we do anything else, it could just be general enemies, but this might be the last port of call. This. And
just
Slow Motion Biome, which is basically that's just a Zur Wield, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's
Nor
not
the water biomes.
It's a lot, Underworld is just magma core, I guess, and the Underworld's a bit different, but
Hallow has potential. If they were
hold on, because Underground Hallow is crystalline caverns, though.
Yeah. I'm thinking like Overworld Hallow.
Like actual nice paradise, grass and actual trees.
Paradise,
underground
beauty, fantasy, where you would get some version of a unicorn that's just there, and it's so clearly the top around Hallow of it's just beauty fantasy, but it would also kind of not be that as well at the same time. For some reason or another, it would be kind of fucked.
Well, the Hallow is that, isn't it? Obviously, it is beautiful, and the things there aren't evil in concept, but it's a very deadly place, kind of.
Very deadly, yeah.
The surface isn't that bad. The unicorns aren't really that bad, to be fair.
It's the zap fuckers, whatever they are. The
gastropods.
Yeah, they kill me quite often.
Gastropods aren't terrible. If we want an in between the nadir shockers and the cave cruiser, where it's still controlled by the breeders, and it could just shoot you. It could just shoot you. Not that wasn't a thing. They did have the slinger. I can't remember what it was. I can actually probably find this quite easily. Is there a cut content page here? No, there isn't. But I can show you what I'm talking about quite easily. Oh, the cut content isn't a thing. Unused. Old and unused. Creatures and flora. Come on. The Glyphid Charger. Swiftly charges at any nearby dwarves, but fails to do anything besides say hello. Right. Yeah, there it is. The Jelly Spike Slinger. Despite the name, it appears to be firing bursts of electricity at players.
Got pretty far through development then, didn't it?
Yeah. Also, it looks like the cave cruiser used to be the cave, the breeder. It's pretty interesting. Look at how it is! If a veteran. Anyway, back to this. Anyway.
Yeah.
What about the Corruption in Crimson?
Crimson is essentially the flesh pit biome, right? Because that's the point of the Crimson. The Crimson is all flesh, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's sort of that's still right to the line of fantasy and sci-fi, but you do get some stuff like that in sci-fi, going into a giant creature's belly. The Corruption is very much so fantasy though.
Yeah, I can't picture a corrupt.
Yeah, but we do the mini biomes.
Fucking, I can't even believe they wild. I still can't comprehend it. But I don't think really gather much on the Aether. I mean, it's kind of similar to the Azure world, really, but Marble Cave is like essentially the salt pits visually.
Meteorite, where we got that now, don't we?
Meteorite.
Yeah, Spider
Yeah.
Cave.
It was whenever web spitters are common, really.
Yeah, the town. No, but honestly, the general mini biomes idea, something I really want the Ghost Ship to look into. I love the idea of mini biomes. And, it felt like they were going somewhere like that with Rockpox. It just never ended up feeling like that. Although you could technically call those mini biomes, where the Rockpox is spread out and sort of changes the terrain, The terrain is literally different in those areas, but it doesn't feel much like an area, You're never, the Rockpox is never like an entire room, the whole thing. If you wanted to implement an actual mini biome, it would like convert entire rooms or something. But yeah, that's like.
Which I think scroll down because I think that's something I want to mention because I saw its structures.
Oh yeah.
Art, and I think this could be an interesting thing. Obviously, some of them less so, but like room formations that aren't just like shapes, but are like they have things in them, like specific things. Like I don't know. But for example, that campfire one from earlier, like it's a room, the casual room that would have like I don't know remnants of a dwarf. Let's
Well,
say,
that we got
or
that.
like
That's like the Lost Pack. It's like there's a little room with like the backpack
yeah, that's
in.
true. Yeah,
Yeah, we kind of got something like that already, and it is loot. You find loot there as well. It's a bit like John. Yeah, we kind of Pyramid.
But maybe more pyramid would be sick as hell if there just occasionally there is just some like pyramids in the sandblasted corridors or something, right?
Yeah, the ancient civilization
kind of have
built.
stuff like that, don't we? Really, with the gravity holes and the pillars in the zoo world. But I'm thinking more like generally, and maybe more in all the other biomes. I don't know, yeah. I don't know, because these kind of stuff are always cool to come across, really.
Why'd they remove the heart shrine? Such a good idea.
Oh.
What's that thing in the middle? A hallowed chest? Or what is that?
Just an ice chest or water chest, one of them.
Oh, hybrid biomes. Biome existence requirements.
I don't think we need much of it.
Mushroom.
Mushroom biome.
Well, a mushroom, the mushroom biome's a bit dodgy, isn't it? Because we got fungus bolts is all mushrooms, and the mushroom biome in Terraria looks like the Azure World. So
yeah,
forget about it. The biomes all have their own music though, and now this is going to be a mixed sort of criticism, but also like not almost retroactive or like essentially I'd be praising them for this in an alternate timeline, but we're not in the alternate timeline. Ghost Ship really, it's not that they don't think about this, they just really are, their principles just guide them towards making stuff that can be experienced pretty much at all times or by everyone. But I think it was all for season 2, no, not season 2, volume 2 of the soundtrack, where they had sort of tracks that they might have used for different purposes. Like there was a Mactera Swarm track, but then they just made it for all swarms. They had a track that was only going to be heard, like an ambient track that was for the glacial strata, but then they just added it to all of them. And you hear it, and it sounds like it should be for the glacial strata. It sounds like it. It's got like this really, and it's like, so it's stuff that they were doing, but it's like, well, we could just use it for everything. It's like, but I actually don't think that's a good idea because actually, even though there's actually a lot of tracks that you can switch between, it makes everything feel more homogenous. It's like, especially biomes deserve their own like soundscapes.
Yeah. Once again, I mean, it is literally when you're in a biome, you hardly ever notice.
See if I can
really
find it because I don't remember the name exactly, but I might if I heard it.
Isn't it? Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Yeah,
we'll know once we see it. I think we both will actually. Assuming that it is from volume 2. It's not. It might. I think it sounds like it must be, but for some reason I remember not being. But it's got to be Absolute Zero. Yeah. And it sounds like the glacial strata. So, and that's why I want a volume 3 to get things like that. That's the thing. I don't actually just want a generalized another like done for music, which would still be good, by the way. Actually, it would be good because it would just add more and more variety. But I want more specified variety, and they showed that they were. But the fact that they turned away from doing that definitively at one point, kind of weird, and shows that it's probably less likely. But it's still something that we really want more than anything.
Even then, Biome ones, as I think it would help, but I think it I don't know, it mixed. But I think the boss ones is almost essential. Clearly, they value the boss soundtrack because with the Dreadnought soundtrack, that doesn't play with the other bosses, does it? It's only ever Dreadnoughts, right?
Yeah.
So they know that Dreadnought soundtrack indicates Dreadnought, and that is a thing they need to preserve. But they literally do not respect any other boss in the game enough for them to have a soundtrack that is tied to them. They just get generic, wave music or not even music. I don't think for like the event ones.
Well, I think the thing that sells it to me is that I kind of get it too, and I especially think a big part of it was just it not those things being added just didn't coincide with the soundtrack release or update. But the thing that sells it to me is like being a problem is that they didn't see why, for example, the rivals should have their own music. The rivals, not just the caretaker fight. Rivals as a faction deserve a different sound to them. It should sound like something not from Hoxie's. It should be a new. That's why the music should change up. And I'm trying to like something. So I'm trying to think of a song I could play to represent the rivals.
Something just more, like some shit like that. What's wrong with that?
What the fuck was that? Much more cyberpunk and less synthwave, because like the Deep Rock soundtrack is like a mix of those two, but it leans a bit more towards synthwave, I think. But more like the cyberpunk 2077 soundtrack, more stuff like that. That's what the rival should have got, at least like 1 or 2 tracks, and it would just play during a rival event, or a boss fight.
Event, boss, swarm, that shit.
Yeah, but we don't actually have rival swarms. But yeah, and this isn't completely irrelevant because Terraria does a good job at stuff like this. Every biome put its own music. Day and Night's got different music. They don't have a song for every boss, but some of them have their own. They've got multiple for the general ones, and every event. So you could call the events the swarms, like the pirate invasion stuff. They all have their own different tracks as well.
Often case you're somewhere or like something's occurring by the music. Right?
Yeah, once you load in, before the actual if it's like the Martian invasion or something, before you actually see like that it is that, you can probably tell by the music.
Not to mention loading up the game and getting hit with the sound, like the fucking yeah. Like I don't know, it's like Ghost. Obviously, like Deep Rock / Ghost Ship, they have such good music. It often
their implementation and like their music is sort of it could almost be treated better, by the game. Yeah. Terraria is a really good template of how to treat your soundtrack very well. Although, actually, I think Martian Mandate is actually the one that doesn't have its own track, to be fair. I just realised. I think it's the only one. But, like, a pirate invasion definitely does. I mean, actually, I don't know why it's not here, but I remember, like, the pirate soundtrack, kind of. It's very recognisable. I don't know why I'm trying so hard to play it. Area pirate music.
Some of it. And the thing is,
that part that you always recognise.
That still sounds very Terraria, but it's slightly different in that I think they added a bit of pirate to it, right? They added a bit of like shanty, like a bit of like
shanty, stuff. Not shanty. That sounds like a Star Wars character.
It's because the thing, but yeah, they just had to slightly change it to match the feel Like, and that's all it
Yeah,
really
and
took.
I want to point out this is something that would have really helped with the Rockbox as well, by the way, because like
A
for
corrupted
example,
type
well, no,
soundtrack.
no, what I mean is like because obviously we talk about how the event, the meteors, feel quite disconnected from the Rockbox. If they had their own, if the Rockbox had its own music set of music, like 1 or 2 or 3 tracks, and they also played during the meteorite event, it would feel more connected to the Rockbox even because you've got like the sounds that associate with it. And like the Rockbox music, I would imagine would either be something
Probably a lot of bubbling or something.
bubbling, but also
Like
like mixed with like metal. It would be almost like Doom, but a little bit softer, probably. A little bit Doom with a bit more spooky elements thrown in, kind of is how I imagine it. Also, there is
I
that
don't
guy
think
who
it would
makes
fit
pretty
in
cool
with
music.
the rest of the soundtrack though. At that point,
No, you definitely want it to fit in. Yeah, could almost be like a more, like the Dreadnought
probably
tracks. It'd be like the
corrupted.
Dreadnought tracks, but with a bit more rhythm. Is how I imagine Rockbox. That would suit Rockbox. Yeah. But I think we should probably wrap this up because I think we've done a pretty good job. I can't really think of anything. Unless you've got anything off the top of your head, do you want to go back to the main menu?
Yeah, just in case. No, yeah. I think there is a lot that can be gathered from Terraria because it's a very big and full game. Like it's kind of inevitable.
Yeah, we could have even gotten into like the different accessories and stuff and got like perk ideas
Yeah,
or like armor
cosmetics.
upgrades possibly even, but
Yeah,
like like the
or-
shoe my armor with like the stealth mode. I want something like that.
Yeah.
I guess stealth module. There's even obviously the NPCs, but what are you going to get out of NPCs? I definitely want more NPCs. I definitely want NPCs in Deep Rock. Guys like on the space ring.
maybe like
Talk to.
events. You could argue there's something there, right? Like maybe certain swarms aren't just enemies, but they also change like the environment.
But the Longbeard
Like
freighter like pilot in like the bar, he's like at the bar just like having a drink, like with his head in his hands, like his head.
I think
Yeah,
that would really freak people out though.
yeah.
Someone was already at the bar. But yeah, no, there is a lot that could be gathered, but I think we covered some simple things.
I think we covered some of the like the most stuff, the stuff that's like easiest to like visualize, if you know what I mean, like with the most visual reference. Because like we didn't get too bogged down like the mechanics and stuff like that. But there were some things like the whip mechanic, possibly. Cyborg, we get a cyborg NPC, like he's like a from the rival corporation, a dwarf, like a cyber dwarf, something. You could even like look at like the teleportation stuff. I want more teleportation. We got like the wormhole special, but then that was like sort of like I mentioned that with the drink cannon. I want some mode of teleportation, or you like a recall thing. You could set like a point you could teleport back to, like shit gets out of hand. The torch god.
The torch god.
No.
Flare god.
Flare god. Yeah, sure. Why not?
But yeah. So, say whether or not you like this series or video in the comments below.
Well, not better yet, but obviously we do want to know if people like it. But also any games that you want because we got a lot. We got a lot we can do.
Have a lot to offer to Deep Rock.
Well,
right?
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't mind trying something that wouldn't immediately you wouldn't immediately be able to tell what you could get from it. At the same time, I was about to suggest games that we hadn't necessarily played before, but the problem with that is you wouldn't necessarily know where to go on the game's wiki, or you wouldn't really know what the things like mean straight away. Yeah,
we would have to familiarize ourselves with it a little bit beforehand. So I guess game recommendations.
But the thing that works also is like it doesn't. Not both of us have to know it though, of course.
Yeah,
which works. So Tyler wants to do like a Persona.
I didn't play that much. Actually, that's a lie. I spent like 80 hours on it.
I'm trying to think of a game that you've a game that you've played like way more, but I haven't even touched. Stardew Valley. Yeah. Because you could say like Apex or something, but just like, well, Titanfall's better, first of all, and I know all about like Titanfall 2. Not only there are so many comparisons I can make that like parallels, there's also a shitload of ideas you can get from it.
I've actually played Dead Cells as well.
Dead Cells. which will be the
Yeah,
next
got it.
Terraria crossover. Yeah, yep. Either way, yeah, let's wrap this up. So if you enjoyed, please make sure to like, subscribe, and um, I literally can't say the other part. Like, I literally can't say it. I think it would work if we like did it like half and half. Like you said, like, hit that.
Like, subscribe. So I don't get what you're going for here.
Well, it's like hit,
Oh.
like and subscribe, and
The bell.
yeah,
Be notified upon new videos releases.
yeah, that's what they say, isn't it? Or they'll say like, hit that bell so when our next game heist video goes up.
Yeah.
Which might be the broad name for the series. But I'm not going to call it like Terraria Game Heist. It'll be
Content heist.
Content Heist. That might sound a bit weird to some people.
Yeah, that sounds more YouTube than game.
Exactly. That's what content sounds like, doesn't it? That's like a YouTuber term.
Yeah.
Like content.
Heist.
We love content. Yeah.
Feature heist.
No, I do kind of like Game Heist though. Game Heist or Feature Heist. Feature Thief. Feature Thief.
All right. Yeah, we'll see you again in another episode of Feature Thief.
We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Point at the camera.
The stop.
Pointing at the camera. No. Yeah,